What's up, my peoples? It's your boy Zaf. Today's Monday. You know what that means, right? That means it's Mastery Monday. Whoosh, invisible text. Okay, so if you guys don't know, I'm Zaf. I teach Street Fighter. I play Street Fighter. I love Street Fighter, and I like you guys. You guys are pretty cool. So today, I'm going to try to accomplish the feat of teaching you guys about punishes. Punishes, what are they? How do you do them? And all this intricate shit that goes into doing them. All right, cool. So hopefully you guys are having a good day, and feel free to let people know that this is a thing, and share it to as many places as possible, because you never know who wants to see this stuff. All right, so I feel responsible for helping you guys level up, and that's why I try to do this week in and week out. Sometimes I get kind of distracted and go to majors and stuff like that, so I'm not home to teach, but I try to be as consistent as possible in doing this. Okay, so if you haven't already, feel free to follow me on here, follow me also on my YouTube channel, and follow me on my Twitter account. All across the board, they have the same name, Zaffarino1. So yeah, let's get into it. All right, so Genesis, what's going on? Thank you for tuning in. I'm relatively new to XSplit. I'm using XSplit. This is like my third time using this, I think, so I might have some hiccups during this stream, but for the most part, I'm gonna try to keep it as simple as possible. You guys see my hyperbolic time chamber is back up in full effect, so I'm pretty happy about that. And panic, go into invisible dimension. Handy dandy notebook. So I like to write out all of my topics that I'm going to be tackling, and just trying to go through the lesson as structured as possible, because I tend to get very creative in the middle of my lessons and kind of go on like random tangents that might not have anything to do, but will have everything to do with Street Fighter. So this kind of keeps me like disciplined, all right, because I don't want to do that. So this is my handy dandy notebook. All right, so punishing. Let's talk about punishes. What are punishes? All right, well, what's going on, Chuck Hadouken? So punishes are very important as you progress in Street Fighter, because the better the player that you end up going against, it's going to be very, very important for you to not let things happen that can very easily swing the favor of the match in your opponent's favor. Otherwise, you end up losing, and then you get confused. You know, it's like when your little cousin comes over after you've learned Street Fighter from watching streams and stuff, and he wants to play Street Fighter with you. Like, it's not as fun anymore, because you know how to beat him if you really wanted to. You know what I'm saying? You could just abuse like fireballs and all this stuff. I did it against my cousin plenty of times, right? So like, at a certain point, you're going to want to learn how to punish your opponent. You're going to want to teach them that, hey, you cannot get away with all of these things that are fake. All right? Technically, anything can be punished in Street Fighter. So it's just a matter of what happens before the situation occurs that can determine that if that's possible or not. Okay, so what is a punish? Well, a punish is intentionally, I say intentionally and I stress intentionally, it's intentionally inflicting a penalty on your opponent for a certain action, while simultaneously reaping some sort of reward. Okay, because Street Fighter, fighting games in general, anything competitive is a zero-sum game, meaning somebody is going to benefit at another person's expense, all right? And the other person's expense, they're going to lose out, whatever. Life shouldn't be that way. I am all for win-win situations. I like win-win situations, okay? But in fighting games, that's not the case. Somebody has to lose, all right? There can be draws, but the intentions of most players outside of training when they're in a competitive environment is to win, of course, right? So somebody's going to have to lose, okay? So keep that in mind. All right, so I have my handy dandy. I have my frame data set up, because I'm going to show you guys some examples. But also, I have Microsoft Paint. Love it. Cool. So I have this fancy Leonardo da Vinci drawing, okay? As you can see, it's very expensive, and it's just like, I'm pretty sure somebody in France is parking outside of a store or boutique trying to get one of these for 1,700 euros, okay? So this is just a simple chart that took me all of 35 seconds to make. And it's just to visually show you guys, like, me, I want the reward, and my opponent is going to take a penalty. All right, that's basically what you want to do. Every time you do something in a fighting game, this is basically what it's going to allude to, okay? This is what it leads up to. All right, so now I'm going to struggle to draw I'm gonna continue to draw things alongside this, so so you guys can see what I'm talking about as I'm doing it. Okay, so it'll be easier to keep up. All right, so well, we see that, okay, punishing, obviously we know what a punish is. Well, why do we want to punish? Of course, like I was saying, as you go up the ranks against better players, they're going to be more skilled and more disciplined at taking advantages of situations, okay? So it's going to be very important for you to pinpoint weaknesses in their behaviors and their actions and exploiting it as best as possible given the scenario, okay? Because obviously there are multiple variables you have to take into account. There's spacing, there's block stun, there's meter, and all this stuff that can affect the potential outcome of a punish. Certain punishes will be very weak. You'll literally get a sweep. Other punishes, you'll get a max punish, all right? But then again, on top of that, sometimes all you need is a sweep to KO an opponent or get a stun to get a combo that would KO your opponent. You know, and other times you would need to jump in because obviously, or you want to punish with like the most damage so that way you can get corner carry or all these other things, okay? All right, so let's talk about how to punish. So I'm going to try to write this out. Let me do new. Boom. Okay. So let's talk about how to punish. Okay. Awesome. Bang. So we have three ways. We have before a move comes out. We have while a move is out. And we also have after a move is out. Okay, so these are the timings. Now, let me do that. Before a move, while a move is out, and after a move is out. Well, I guess I have to be more specific with this. So I'll say like after, meaning recovery of move. Okay, cool. Or let me put move recovery so that way I have enough space so you can see all of this in one nice little place, right? Okay, cool. So you see we have three things. This is like a very simple way to look at how to punish a move, all right? So it's like when I was learning how to edit videos, okay? I'm still learning, not super like expertise at it. But there was a very simple way to go about editing or animating, right? So if I want to edit something, I first would create an outline, and then I animate it, and then I sequence it. 3 steps, that's it. And it's so simple. Like, it makes it very easy to know where I am in regards to my project, okay? So this is a way to go about learning how to punish a move. So whenever you're in training mode, you can use this as a little, like, template, if you will, okay? So if I want to know how to punish a move, I can figure it out in one of 3 ways. I would want to learn how to punish before, if it's possible, while the move is out, right? If it's possible, and after during its recovery frames, if it's possible. And the reason why I say if it's possible is because there are very specific scenarios where you might not be able to do one of the 3. You might only be able to do, one of the 3. That's very specific, and I'll give you little examples so you guys can understand, just so your brain can like absorb the concepts that I'm trying to express that's going on right now, okay? So, and then for each one of these, we have a another, like, I guess, subcategory, if you will. All right. So now let me write alongside this. So before a move is out. So this you could actually equate to being your startup frames, okay? So this could be your startup, and then while a move is out would be during your active frames, okay? And then after a move, or when the move is in recovery, you would say these are the recovery frames, okay? So again, going off of the same philosophy of the 3-step process to figuring out how to punish things, which is before a move is out, you'd want to punish the startup, okay? While a move is out, you want to punish the active frames, okay? And then the third thing would be after a move's recovery, or after a move, which would be recovery frames, because the move can't really do what it's supposed to do during its recovery frames. It can't attack you anymore. That's why we say after a move, all right? Or just recovery frames. Because after the active frames are over, the move is recovering. If I throw a jab, right, the wind-up is the startup. And then when it can make contact with you, which would be here, boom. That's when I'm active, okay? For however long my fist can stay out there and actually hit somebody, that's the active frame. So if a move is active for 3 frames, my hand is sticking out. You can walk into it like, you know, like one of those like cartoons where somebody's like running and all of a sudden, like, just one person just sticks his hands out and the person just runs right into it and just knocks themselves the fuck out. That's the active frame, all right? So the active frame is me just doing this, and you're just running right into it. Cool. And then your recovery frames are like you pulling back. When can I move again, all right? So like me punching, start up, hitting, active, and then pulling back, so then I could throw the next punch. I can't throw the next punch until this punch comes back. That's like boxing 101, all right? And then we can go a little bit further. So let's go a little further with this, all right? And then with these, we can specify it to in-game terms, okay? So we'll say that for our startup, we have, oh, oops. Let me actually make this look a lot neater. Oh my God, okay. So for our startup frames, we will put the terminology counter hit, okay? So we have counter hit. During our active frames, we'll use the term evasion, and during our recovery frames, we'll put punish. And the reason why we'll sound kind of redundant and say punish is because this is the most common way people understand punishes. People understand punishes primarily through block stun, right? Through recovery frames. So it's like, might as well just kind of leave it there. It's like the conventional communication in terms of this concept, all right? Most people understand that. So I just kind of leave that there, okay? But the counter hit and the evasion stuff I will obviously go more into. But this is basically going to be the templates and the direction of our conversation today, okay? So I've put it out in front of you guys so you guys can see this. So when you guys rewatch the archive, when I upload it to YouTube, you guys will be able to just like pinpoint where in the video you want to go to, because you're like, all right, I need to work on this, I need to work on this, or I need to figure out how to stop this move. What is the formula again? Boom, 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 okay? So hopefully you guys are following along, all right? So in my opinion, I would say in order of difficulty, all right? So let's say hardest to easiest to learn, okay? Or, yeah, I'd say to learn, okay. Actually, I wouldn't say it's to learn. Let me say it's to perform. So this is like in an actual match. I would personally say that in order, it would be the punishing the active. So I'm gonna put, I'd say number 1, active. Number 2 would be the, oh yeah, startup. And then number 3 would be the recovery, okay? So what's going on, Earl? So I will say this. The reason why I have the active frames as being the most difficult to punish is because it requires a really good sense. Requires rhythm recognition. All right, let me expand that a little bit. No. Damn it. Okay, whatever. Okay. Oh my God, I absolutely suck at using this thing, so I don't know what the hell just happened. Fuck. Okay, so, yeah, I don't even know how to highlight this. Whatever. So, I would say, in the order, again, try this again. So, it would be active. Number 2 would be the startup. And number 3 would be recovery frames, okay? So I would say active because it requires the rhythm, okay? You have to be very keen on your opponent's rhythm, okay? Yes, the same can be said of startup, but not only does punishing active frames require rhythm, it also requires understanding the hitboxes. All right, not too many people do that. So hitboxes, okay? So it also requires that. So that is also another reason why I say it is more challenging to perform, because it requires more expertise, aka you need more time invested to figuring out how to punish active frames of moves, okay? So generally when you're dealing with a move, most people are dealing with it on recovery, the lesser skilled players. But the better the players get, the more they're able to manage around a move during all three phases of a move. They know how to stop a move on the startup frames, during the active frames, and during the recovery frames. But they typically don't want to, like if I'm playing a certain character, I don't want to do something that would allow me to get punished during my recovery frames. Okay, like I'm less likely to do that. I'm gonna do moves that are more safe to deal with on recovery, but they're harder to punish through active frames or through the startup. You see, that's why you see at the highest level, you'll see more of the better players using medium pokes and light pokes in footsies. And they'll occasionally sprinkle a little bit of those crush counter buttons, the heavier attacks, when they have a really good sense of the opponent unblocking. All right? Because typically those buttons, those crush counter buttons, they can get jumped in on, they can get punished through recovery and all sorts of stuff like that, okay? So that's my main thing for saying why active frames are the hardest to deal with, because you see the top players, like, they're doing moves that typically that's how you have to punish them. You have to punish them while they're active, not by blocking them, because if you block them, you can't punish them, okay? So startup, I'd say, requires frame data. So that's why I think it requires a lot of familiarity with the cast, understanding your opponent's options, and understanding the numbers behind your moves, okay? So that requires some effort on your part to go and investigating these things too, okay? And then I'd say recovery, it's also frame data, you know, but then a lot of it too is just like, it's timing in a sense too, because it does require you having rhythm if you're going to jump in on somebody's, like, you know, fireball or something like that. But you don't necessarily have to hit them on the recovery. You can also hit them on their startup. You can hit them on their active frames and just avoid it, right? So there's tons of ways to deal with a move on recovery if it's not safe, okay? So I think in terms of being, like, having to have the most mastery, active frames, if you know how to punish active frames of a move, then you're demonstrating that you understand a game and you understand the situation at hand. Okay, you understand the tool sets involved and all these variables that are going into the equation between you and your opponent. Okay, so let's see. So I'm going to provide some examples. So we're going to show some in-game examples. Okay, so I'm going to start with let's start with the recovery frame, because that's the easiest one to explain. Okay. So I want to start with that. So let's take a move. I'm playing Guile. Get my handy dandy arcade stick. Okay. So I'm playing Guile against Laura. All right. Let's say I have a hard time with Laura's sweep. Okay. Let's say Laura's sweep gives me a really hard time. So I want to practice punishing it, right? Well, first, let me find out if I can punish it on block. So you have a bunch of ways of going about this. Now that they've introduced this feature, the frame advantage, you can actually find out a lot easier, especially with the attack data. You can find out a lot easier if a move is negative enough on block to be punished. Well, I take that back. You don't find out if a move is punishable enough on block, because you still have to do the research to figure out if you have fast enough tools or lengthy enough tools to reach. But at least you know the frame data. So let's say Laura's sweep. I just hypothetically have a hard time with it. So I want to find out, well, what is it on block, right? Because obviously I don't want to get hit by it. I don't care about getting hit by it. Okay. But as you can see, it's minus 12. At least. Oh, it's switching at the last second. So it's minus 14? It's minus 14. Okay. So it's minus 14. What's going on, bunch? So if you want to make sure that this is accurate, because training mode can be kind of wonky sometimes, then you can just go over to any any site that has frame data, or you can download the frame data apps that are available on iOS and on Android devices. They're free. You can download them, and it has every single character's frame data available, okay? So let's say I need to figure out what is Laura's sweep on block. So I would go over here and see I'm under Laura. So this website here, it's like a Google Doc. It has access to all of the characters, their normal specials, the properties all the way on the right. It's pretty cool. So let's say Laura's sweep. So I'd go over here to the left, look at the names. Let's say sweep, crouching heavy kick. What is it on block? On block, it's -14. Okay, cool. So now all I have to do is perform a move that is 14 frames or faster. Okay. So what that means is any move that is from frame 1 all the way to 14 can punish this move, okay? The fastest button in this game is 3 frames. So you don't have to worry about that in terms of normals. But as long as I have a 3-frame move to a 14-frame move, I can potentially punish her sweep on block, okay? So let's go to Guile. I go to Guile, and I say, all right, let's see what Guile has that is less than 14 frames. Oh, okay, so I have all of these, all of my normals are basically less than 14 frames. So that means I should be able to punish them with every button. Negative. Why is that negative? Well, I'm about to break your heart. Because you have to factor in pushback, okay? So, I'll show you a prime example. So let's say I am going to save right here, okay? That move, stand light kick, is approximately 4 frames of startup, okay? But why doesn't it punish? Well, because I'm not hitting her. I'm not hitting her hurt box. If you guys haven't already, I have a hurt box, hitbox lesson on my YouTube channel. You can also check that out, so this will make a lot more sense. But for those of you that have, just follow along with me, of course. So, obviously, I'm not in range to hit her hurt box, okay? So, therefore, I can't punish this at this range. So, that's why you have to factor in range with recovery, okay? So, that's an advanced aspect of recovery. But for beginner stages, we're going to just keep this simple, okay? I can punish this, right? As long as I'm close enough to where I can hit her, you see I'm punishing her, clearly, right? I can do this with every button that I have. Stand fierce, crouch fierce. All right, because all these buttons are 14 frames or faster. Okay, low forward, sweep. Okay, cool. But when you're further away, you're going to want to learn the ranges of your attacks. So, okay, obviously I can't use my light attacks because they're too far, right? My jab is too far, my stand jab is too far. So let me graduate to the longer normals. So usually when you graduate to the longer reaching pokes, you're sacrificing speed, okay? So we can look at our frame data to prove a point. So let's say I go to my frame data for Guile, and I see that, well, his fastest poke is 4 frames. It's stand light kick, stand light punch, and crouching light punch, okay? And crouching light kick. All 4 of those light attacks are 4 frames. Beautiful. But when you start to graduate to the heavier attacks, what ends up happening is they get slower. So you see his stand medium punch, although it has more range, or maybe it doesn't. I don't think it does. But some of the for the most part, medium attacks have more reach than light, and heavies have more reach than both, okay? So let's say my stand fierce, 8. My stand medium kick, 7. Stand heavy kick, 14. Crouching medium punch, 6. Crouching heavy punch, 8. Crouching medium kick, 7. Sweep, 7. Okay? So then we go back to the game. And now, we try to punish it. Okay, so that button doesn't work. Crouch medium punch doesn't work. Stand medium punch doesn't work, doesn't reach. Oh, sweet. Okay, cool. That's pretty good. You see how I'm walking back and it's whiffing? That's max distance. You always want to check the max distance of a poke, okay? So that way you can ensure, like, oh, no matter what, if I block this, you are absolutely screwed. That is pretty cool to know. All right? So that works. That works. What else? Low forward whiffs. Okay. That whiffs. But we know sweep works. So now we have a guaranteed punish. So basically, in terms of reward, we're rewarding ourselves with a knockdown, all right, and pressure if we block a sweep. Okay, so that's an aspect of the match that you'd basically be able to take advantage of against Laura. So if Laura would use it, we're not saying she's not going to use it. She's going to use it. It's a part of her tool set. It's very foolish to not use something just because it's punishable. All right, there's a time and a place for everything. You know what I'm saying? So let's say that we now know this. So this is something that we can subtract from her game plan, at least the tool or at least health from it, from using it. So if I'm playing a Laura and they don't sweep, then I'd say, oh, I'm taking away your sweep because you know that I can punish it. Okay, but let's pretend they don't do that. Let's say they do sweep. Every time they sweep, I get a guaranteed sweep. So I get to sweep her back, and I get pressure, and I get a health advantage. I get bar because I'm hitting and landing an attack, right? I'm getting positioning advantage. Also, because I'm pushing her towards the corner when I pressure her. So you're getting all of these victories off of one thing. That's why it's important to learn. That. Oh my lord, Jip de Bossington. Thank you so much for joining the bloodline. Much love to you, my brother. Thank you so much. Much love to you, man. I appreciate it. Jip is always holding it down and throwing mad love my way in my inboxes. He's hitting me up, telling me good shit at this tournament. You can do better. Blah, blah, blah. Bada bing, bada boom. So much love to you, bro. I appreciate it, brother, man. Thank you so much. So yeah, okay. So we said, so we got an example of sweep on block. It's a recovery on, oh yeah, okay, so cool. So it doesn't only apply to moves on block, believe it or not. There's actually a couple of moves in the game that if you block them on, or block them on hit, if you get hit, you can actually punish them. Kind of crazy, right? But yes, there are moves like that. So an example would be Dalsim's slide, crouching light kick. If he does it and you get hit, he's actually -4. But the thing is that it's so fast, if you're not prepared for it, that you end up not doing anything about it. You don't capitalize on it. Colonel Fancy, thank you for the follow. I appreciate it. So it's very, very important, right? Therefore, for you to understand these situations and capitalize on it. Anytime somebody's in like a recovery state, ask yourself, hey, can I potentially punish this? Right? I start off doing that with all of like the very common moves, right? The common situations. What is the frame data for this? Because you're not going to know every situation all the time, right? It's not realistic. But you gradually work towards understanding all of the situations, right? If you don't play the character, you're not really going to understand every possible situation. You're just going to have a good idea of the ones that you're going to constantly be in, right? So sweep with Laura, she's going to constantly try to do that against Guile, mainly because trading against sonic booms is very important for her, okay? So if you guys don't know this, Guile's feet, his hurt box expands at his feet when he throws a sonic boom, okay? So it's a very good idea for anybody to try to trade sweeps against Guile, because even if you get hit by the boom doesn't do more damage than your sweep, and you get knocked down. So now you can close the gap, all right? So that's a little tidbit of advice if you guys didn't know that. So, moving on. So we said recovery. All right. Okay. And then next we will go to. So now we can go to startup. All right. So to simplify what I just said, just whenever you try to learn how to punish something on recovery, you want to make sure that it's fast enough and you're in proximity. You're close enough, okay? So you have to be fast enough and you have to be close enough. That's it on recovery, okay? That's the rules, the golden rules. Remember that. Fast enough, close enough. Fast enough, close enough. Fast enough, close enough. What did I say? Somebody say it in the chat. Say it right now. Fast enough. Okay, I heard you. I heard somebody say it. One of you guys said it. Okay, cool. So next example. All right. So let's talk about startup. So this is another way. What's up, Pete? Thanks for tuning in, bro. So this is another way to go about punishing people. So let's talk about startup frames, okay? So this is what I considered the second most difficult or second most easiest, whichever way you looked at it, of the three, okay? So startup frames. Now, this is going to require you being very what? You're gonna have to be very, very alert of frame data. Okay, frame data, very important. So speed. So this is like kind of like the recovery aspect. Okay, but also because of priority in the game, you're gonna want to understand the priority system. Yay! Okay, so this is important. So in Street Fighter V, for those of you that don't know, there is a hierarchy system, essentially, okay? And in this hierarchy system, you have priority. Priority, yay! Okay, so this priority is essentially like this, all right? So if we trade attacks on the same active frame, light punch, well, let's actually go in order. So heavies will beat mediums, will beat light, okay? So if we do an attack on the same exact frame, all right, depending on the strength of your attack, you could potentially win automatically. Doesn't matter, okay? But there are other things that go into that, all right? But we'll get into that in a second. So for startup, you want to know the speed, okay? So I just bring this up so when we transition into the active frames, that this will make a lot more sense. But you want to know the startup because speed is very important in a game like this. Speed is super important because you want to be able to initiate offense like that. You want to be able to capitalize on the holes and the gaps in your opponent's offense like that, okay? Because then all of a sudden, you can switch the tide and the offense and the momentum to your side to be at your leverage, okay? It's very important in a game like this. You want to be the one that's constantly on the offensive or the aggressor. You don't necessarily have to be active, but what I mean by being offensive is just establishing yourself, establishing your dominance by being in some sort of superior positioning, okay? So, excuse me. So let's talk about startup frames. So you want to study your frame traps, okay? So let's see. Frame traps. So for startup, you want to understand frame traps. And to understand frame traps, you want to understand frame data, okay? That's very, very important. Also, I'm going to give you an example of each, okay? Going back to the game, I'm going to give you a very common situation, all right? I'm going to have Laura demonstrate. Actually, I'm going to show you with Gal first. So Gal has a very common frame trap, all right, where he does this. Stand strong, crouch strong, okay? I'm going to have her block. Stand strong, crouch strong, okay? If you look at where it says frame, he's only +2 after he does this, okay? But his crouching strong is 6 frames. So what's 6 minus 2? It's 4, correct? Okay. And remember what we said? We said the fastest normal in the game is how many frames? It's 3 frames. Okay. So, if we go to our handy dandy frame data chart, right? We clearly see that if we go to Laura, does she have a fast enough button that is faster than 4 frames? Well, obviously we said there's no button faster than 3 frames, so that means we only have to see a 3-frame button. Well, guess what? She does. A 3-frame stand light punch. Okay. So that means that she should, in theory, be able to punish this, correct? Well, we have to find out because we have to take into account spacing. Okay? So we go back to the game, and this is how you'd set this up. So you'd record guard recovery, and just have her mash the button. Make sure it says reversal. Fail. So you want it to make sure it says reversal, because that means it's the fastest possible timing, aka the first opportunity that you can move. Anytime you see that, that's what it means. So whenever you see somebody do a reversal special, like on Wake Up, that means they did it on the very first frame of getting up, because the very first frame is when you can move again, okay? So whenever you see that on the screen, that means, oh, this is a flashing alert, like this opponent is committing to something immediately. Very important, okay? So the thing is, you don't see it with normal attacks, though. So you have to be very alert of your frame traps in your frame data so that you know, oh, this person's doing this at the fastest possible timing. Okay, so I have to tighten up my frame trap. All right. So if I do this, I get counter hit. What? Right? Oops. I'm getting counter hit. And then she can convert into a whole plethora of damage because of that one situation that she exposed my offense. All right. So if you have a 3-frame button, Guile can get destroyed for this. All right. And this is very common. Guile players do this a lot. So how does Guile get around it? Well, he has to go look at his frame data. Well, you see, he's +2. So all he has to do is do a move that would be faster than 3 frames. Right? Yo, little creepy, Sleepy. Thank you for the cheers. I appreciate it. So, all I have to do is figure out a move that is going to be faster than 3 frames, right? Okay. But I also have 2 frames at advantage. So that means I can move 2 frames before you can. So, if I do the math, I just need a move that is 4 frames or faster. Because I have a 4-frame button, but I'll be at 2 frames at advantage, meaning I can move 2 frames before you. So my 4-frame move would actually be subtracted by 2. It would only be a 2-frame button at that point. All right. So what did we talk about? What moves are 4 frames? All of his light attacks, right? See? Boom. So now I have a frame trap. That would beat that. Right? Cool. But also, let's take into account another situation. Very common situation, all right? So, often, there are going to be moves that are used against you to counterpoke your offensive sequences. Similar to that, right? Where Laura did the stand light punch. But now let me show you another example. This is another classic Laura example where she does stand light kick. Very classic. Super classic. In fact, it is in a museum somewhere. Some sort of GIF file of Laura just killing people with this one sequence. So, I have Laura doing stand light kick. Oops, did I put the wrong one on? Oh, okay. Stand light kick, okay? So, typically, they'll use it at a different spacing. They don't use it up here, right? They'll use it at the end of your poke. Because remember what I said about medium pokes, right? They typically exchange reach for startup. So that means my button would be slower, okay? So that is very, very important. So in a situation like this, I would want to punish her recovery frames, okay? Because let's say I'm autopiloting. I'm playing Guile, I'm doing this or something, right? Right, or let me see. But you see how annoying this is to deal with? So instead instead of punishing the counter hit, well, I wouldn't want to counter hit this, right? I could counter hit it, but I'd have to be closer. But I'm not close enough to do that. So what would I do? I'd want to punish the active frames or the recovery frames instead. So what I could do is I could just do this, right? And I just basically committed to whiff punishing that, right? So the crush counter method, the way it works is that if you're active while I am active with my higher priority move, then you get crush countered. So it doesn't have to hit you on startup frames, right? It just automatically counter hits you even while you're active. So it's very, very rough. It's like insanely rough. So you see, like, technically his sweep is 7 frames, right? But my crouching strong is only +1, right? So this should be a 6-frame gap. She should clearly counter hit me, right? But why isn't she counter hitting me? Well, because that graduates into our next lesson about punishing people while they're active. So you see, when you punish somebody while they're active, it's typically, this is like going to be the more common of the 3 you're going to want to do at this range because you're not close enough to counter hit them typically, okay? So if I were to look at those 3 things that we talked about, startup frames, active frames, recovery frames, I'd want to punish startup up close. I'd want to punish recovery up close or, you know, over here on block, you have the option. But typically active frames, you're going to want to punish them over here. You see what I'm saying? So on block, you can punish them up close or further away. Startup, you typically want to counter hit up close, right, through frame traps and stuff like that, okay? And then when you're countering active frames, it's typically going to be at your pokes range, like your max distance of your pokes, because that's when people feel safe. They know that you're slower, so they're going to try to take advantage of your lack of speed, okay? So that's why this works. I'm extending my range to Laura later on in the active frames. So I'm going to show you an example of that, what that looks like, okay? So we're going to go to the Street Fighter Sim website. I'm going to show you this. It's a really dope website. So let's look at Guile's sweep. Okay, we're going to look at the hurt box. All right. So if you go here, it should say 2HK. This is what it looks like. So we're going to open that tab up. All right, and then I'm going to go back. We'll go to Laura, and we'll look at our stand light kick, which should be 5LK. Okay, I'm going to open that up. So now, let's look at Guile's sweep. This is Guile when he does sweep, okay? So it's a 7 frame. All right, and you see, like, that's actually kind of crazy. Typically, moves in this game, the hurt box will extend very far forward, that like a couple of frames or the frame before the active frame. But Guile does expand, but not as much as where his hitbox ends up being. Like, that's actually very strong. So he can be further away from you, but then at this frame where he's active, it's actually in front of where the previous frame's hurtbox was. So there's like this gap. All right, so that's basically what's happening with Laura. So if we look at Laura's stand light kick, she doesn't move that far forward. She has a clearly superior hitbox interaction. And what I mean by that is whenever you want to figure out somebody has a dominant hitbox to hurtbox ratio, all you have to see is that their hitbox is in front of their hurtbox. That's it, okay? I go way more in depth with this on the YouTube video that I uploaded. Like, that was a lesson from like a month ago or something like that. So you can go check that out and you can get way more in-depth explanations to that. But this is just to kind of just use it as an example. But the reason why this doesn't work against Guile's sweep is because it doesn't extend that far enough forward to hit Guile's extended hurt box. All right? And even when it does, you see that green that's right here? It's just low enough for Guile to still clip Laura with the active frame. So whenever this collides, right, I'm going to show you guys an example of a trade. So the reason why trades happen is because somebody's red box hits the other person's green box while the other person's red box hits their green box, okay? So that's how a trade happens. So a trade scenario I can show you guys. Let me show you in the game really quick. It would be like, let me see. What would be a common frame trap? Laura has a 3... Oh, okay, I know a perfect one. Okay, so check this out. So Laura has a 3-frame stand jab, right? Okay, so I'm going to do crouching medium punch, okay? And that's going to leave me +1. And my next move will be 1 frame faster. So my stand jab is 4 frames, so now it's 3 frames. So because they're the same strength, they're both light attacks, it'll trade. See? So a trade happens. Right? Cool. But then we see, when I do crouch jab, crouch, what is it? Stand jab, crouch strong. Crouching strong is 6 frames, right? Stand jab is +3. So 6 minus 3 is 3 frames. So why isn't a trade happening? Because the design of Street Fighter V is a priority system, like we talked about. So if a move hits, if our hitboxes exchange and hit each other, right, on the same frame, the game says, wait a minute, who has more priority? Do you or do you? And if it sees that you're both the same strength, if we're both light attacks, if we're both medium attacks, if we're both heavy attacks, it says, oh, okay, commence, go ahead. You guys can knock each other the fuck out, right? But if one of them has a strength advantage, if one is a medium and one's a light, the medium are always going to win automatically, boom, if we collide, right? But again, if they're the same strength, they trade, right? But you see there's exceptions to the rule, like I just showed you guys with the light kick, right? how her light kick could potentially beat my buttons. So let's see. Right? See? Because it had that speed advantage. So if it has speed advantage, it can hit me on my hurtbox before my hitbox ever comes out. So that's how you could get around priority. Okay? So if you have a speed advantage, you can do that. Or if you have a hitbox hurtbox advantage. So those are the two ways that you can circumvent the priority system. Is if I have a speed advantage over you, meaning I counter hit you, or I have an active frame advantage over you, meaning my hitbox is very, very far in front of my hurtbox to the point that your hitbox never even has a conversation. It never sees me, period. It doesn't see my hurtbox at all, okay? So that's how that could happen. We could both be active and I can still potentially counter poke you out of a poke just because I was able to hit you. You know what I'm saying? So there is that. Other examples of recovery block punishes that I wanted to bring up were that even though the fastest button in the game is 3 frames, there are frame traps that are 2 frames and 1 frame in gap, right? So a very common one would be for Laura, Fierce into EX clap. As you'll see here, it's going to demonstrate this is not a true block string, right? Because you see I held up and I got hit. It's not a true block string. Alright? And if I press jab, I get counter hit. And I get counter hit even if I use a 3-frame character. Alright? So it is a 2 or a 1-frame gap. Alright? But you can overcome that by introducing invulnerability frames. So invincible frames. So if you have a move that is invincible on startup, then you can completely overcome that. Alright? So example, with Guile, he has flash kick. EX flash kick. Alright? I did that way too early. So you can say... and I go right through it. Okay, I can also do, I have other options too. I can also super. Alright. Oh, so that's a 2-frame gap then, because I traded it right there. Or it wasn't reversal and it still came out. Because if it's a 1-frame gap, and if it's a 1-frame gap, that means like anything not reversal wouldn't come out because I would have got hit on the second active frame. But because my super still came out and it wasn't reversal, that means it was the second active frame. And we already said that 3-frame buttons, they get counter hit, right? So there you go. That's proof in the pudding. So that's a 2-frame gap, essentially. All right. So that's good to know. All right. Is there anything else that I wanted to talk about? So we got startup, got the active, recovery, boom, 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 boom. Invulnerability required. Okay, yeah, so I pretty much covered everything. I'm pretty sure. Oh yeah, the other example. I'll show you the example with Dalsum really quick. Because Dalsum is the one character I could think of off rip that has a punishable move on hit. So I'll take this and then I'll have Dalsum dash up to me and do a light kick slide. PC version loads pretty quick, so that was so good. All right, so I have Dalsum, and I'm holding the block butt, right? I'm just oops, dash up, slide, holding back, down back at that. All right, so I'm gonna do a slower attack. I'm gonna flash kick, boom. Oh, damn, that's just a -7? Oh, my God, even worse. Oh, that was on block. Okay, so on hit, let's see, ready? -4. You guys seen that? See? So he has to space it. He has to space his slide the right way in order for that to work, okay? So if we block it, then he's -7, which is, like, pretty wild. But if he spaces it correctly, then it's not as punishable. So I'm going to stay, like, right here. See, it was -1 right there. Let me stay right here. Move back. -2. See? So as it's hitting you in the later active frames, it changes the advantage. But that's just an example. Some of the moves in the game are minus on hit enough to where you can punish them. It's very strange, but it's a fun fact. So if that ever happens to you, you can potentially turn that into an advantage. Okay. So whenever you're punishing these players for all of these like obvious advantages, that's how you can swing a matchup in your favor. Okay. And then so those are like the very obvious tangible victories that I talked about. I have another video for that. That's also on my YouTube channel. So that's a tangible victory, okay, where I can look at the game and say, oh, I'm winning off of that situation because I inflicted damage, or because inflicted damage. That's the most common one. We'll say I inflicted damage, or the timer is running and I have a health lead, okay? That's how you can tell you're winning. But then there are also the very subtle victories, which would be like meter. It would be your meter, your stun, right? Your V trigger. Those three things, those are very important, right? So those are victories also, but they're not as obvious. They can be overlooked commonly by players of all skill levels. And then I'd say like the very intangible, the ones that like you don't see a meter for it on the screen to tell you that you're winning because of it. That's your spacing and your positioning. So spacing meaning like based off of the two characters that are on the screen, like who's winning, right? So obviously Guile would be winning if he's here, and Dawson would be winning if he's here, right? Like that's how we would know who's winning. Dawson would be winning here, Guile would be winning here, okay? But there's no meter that tells you that. You'd have to know that based off of your own exploration into the character's strengths and stuff like that. And then the other aspect of it would be positioning. So positioning is in terms of the relation to the corner. So if Dawson's cornered, then I have the positioning advantage, right? If Guile is cornered, then Dawson has the positioning advantage. Okay, so then spacing, it's not as dominant in a sense, but your positioning is very important. So like this can completely switch up your spacing. All right, so you're basically punishing somebody by putting them in a position like this. So these are ways how you would punish somebody. So the ways I was teaching you guys at the beginning of the stream, that was like the more obvious ways of dealing with moves, right? But in terms of like punishing somebody for behavior, the way you'd want to punish somebody for behavior is basically exercising a strength or imposing a strength of yours. All right. So Dawson is automatically punishing me if he keeps me here. All right. He doesn't even have to hit me. As long as he keeps me here and he's not taking damage at this range, he's not losing at this spacing, he's punishing me because he knows I want to get in. Everything I do here is just for me to close the gap. You know, any knockdown, all that stuff, I'm just trying to close the gap and rush him down because obviously Dawson wins here. But if you don't know that, then how do you go about punishing somebody for that? Okay, that's why it's important to be able to know what you're trying to accomplish and what your opponent's trying to accomplish. And therefore, you can punish somebody just by eliminating some potential strength in their strategy, okay? So that is that. Hopefully, I did a good job today. I hope you guys enjoyed that. It's your boy Zaf. Much love to you guys for tuning in. I appreciate all of you guys wholeheartedly. Thank you very much. Feel free to follow me on Twitch. Feel free to follow me on YouTube, on my Twitter channel, all of them across the board, at Zaffarino1 on Twitter, YouTube channel, Zaffarino1. Twitch is also the same. Of course, you're on here. You'd know that. So feel free to follow me on there. Share the content with people that you think might want to level up. Maybe somebody else that it could be more interested in the game than you. Maybe you're just casually strolling by, but you know some players that like fighting games, but they don't know where to start. It's very frustrating to not know how to grow in a fighting game. Okay, like I've been there, I've done that. I don't want anybody to feel that. That shit sucks. So that's why I'm here, to do what I do. And I'm really good at explaining things and conceptualizing. So it just works out. Feel free to hit me up on any of the platforms if you want to just like ask me a question. I do my best to answer them. And yeah, if you have any subs, feel free to throw some Twitch primes my way. I appreciate it. I don't hate. I only congratulate. You know what I'm saying? So if you want to support your boy, there's that. You can do that. All right. So that is that for all of you guys. I'm out. Stream is over. I'll stream probably tomorrow when I get back from the gym. I'll do some rank stuff. All right. But I'll be back Thursday at the latest with my next stream, Analysis Paralysis. So if you guys don't know about that, Analysis Paralysis, I basically do analysis of tournament sets. It can be like a recent tournament, it could be an old tournament, whatever. It doesn't matter. My own footage, it could be anything. But I typically do that, so I'll make that happen then. All right, and then Sunday will be my sub day. I'm gonna continue that because I don't have a major or anything going. I'm gonna go to this weekend. So Sunday I'll do sub day, and that'll be dedicated to my subs. I basically run a first to 5 with them, or they can have me analyze a replay of their choice, or help them learn a matchup in the training mode for 30 minutes, like against any character they want. So I dedicate that to my stream subs, so I can give them something. All right. So I appreciate all you guys who are tuning in. Much love to you, and your boy is out. Peace.